Hey folks, CA Rachana Ranade here. When it comes to e-commerce sales, something like Big Billion Sales or Amazon Great Indian Festival, these days we look at it from a very positive perspective. We talk about discounts, we talk about GMV, we talk about overall buzz in this entire space. But do you recall what was the perception of this entire space a decade ago? Can't remember. Let me show you a very interesting article. This is an article dated 20th January 2017, and the headline goes something like this: Losses of Flipkart, Amazon, and Snapdeal would have allowed ISRO to go to Mars 24 times. The whole point of this article was about how much losses, 11,754 crores combined loss of all these players, and how this space may, or there was a big question mark on this space, correct? But fast forward, this is a previous year's article which says Amazon Great Indian Festival 2024 records 1.4 billion customer visits. So rather than looking at this space from how much profits or loss, now it talks about how many people visited. Now, out of the people visited, what all are they buying? That is what is discussed. Then whether people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities are also really buying into these big discounts. A lot of focus is also given on different type of entrepreneurs, be it small and medium businesses, women entrepreneurs, weavers, artisans. They, how much they have sold. See, look at this, they sold over 1,000 units every minute during this event. All in all, if you one more point, how much was the sale from the Prime members? So all in all, if you ask me, has the perception changed? 100% yes. In fact, I read this beautiful line somewhere that marketing is not about marketing of products, it's about marketing of perceptions. And I think this whole e-commerce space has clearly seen a shift in perception. Have the numbers shown it? Yes. If I'm talking about e-commerce sales, GMV, that is gross merchandise value, is something really important, and that has blown like anything. If I'm talking about year 2020, the GMV estimate was around 50,000 crores INR, and this is expected to be a number of 1,15,000 crores INR in 2025. This has more than doubled in a span of 5 years. So all in all, has it positively impacted the e-commerce space? Answer is obviously yes. But then the big question is, what impact can this entire e-commerce space have on the economy? What impact can it have on the stock market? What impact can it have on people like you and me? All these points are going to be discussed in the coming sections of the video. So keep on watching the video till the end. Meeru alla unnaru Hyderabad. I hope you guessed it right. Yes, I'm coming to Hyderabad not only to eat biryani, but also for my Har Ghar Investor event, which is going to happen for the very first time in Hyderabad on 11th of October. And all the event details are right in front of your screen. Well, we are going to have a lot of fun. We are going to learn a lot. Lots of selfies. There is so much more to happen in this event. It gets a little bit more exciting because for the first time we are offering an early bird discount, 100 rupees off per ticket only till this Sunday. So hurry and book your seats now. Twaralo Kaluddam. Now let's try and understand the impact of such big e-commerce sales on our entire economy and also on our stock market. First things first, impact on our economy. Everyone knows that if I were to understand the health of an economy, one important parameter is GDP. Now for GDP, we have said this many times, but you know the formula as well. It's C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? That C stands for consumption. And for India, 60% of our GDP is nothing but the C, that is consumption. Now, private consumption is extremely important when it comes to e-commerce sales, because if e-commerce sales are a hit, this consumption factor is immediately boosted. Can this be reflected by increase in Q3 numbers for GDP? Answer is yes. So just one more time quickly, if e-commerce sales are a boost, overall consumption gets a boost, and that boost can be seen in our Q3 GDP numbers. Okay. Second thing, everyone knows that GST percentages for major products have been dropped. With drop in GST, ideally the prices are going to have already decreased. Can this lead to an increase in demand? Yes. And if that be so, because of a higher volume of transactions, there is a possibility that though GST rates have dropped, the overall collection may not drop significantly. So it will be really interesting to see how the tax revenues show up for this specific month. And all in all, because it's e-commerce, obviously majority of the payments would happen through digital platforms, and India is very well known for the digital platforms, be it other wallets or of course our UPI. So all in all, this will also have a nice impact on the economy, right? Now let's understand the stock market impact also. See, if all these sales be it Amazon, Meesho, Flipkart, whichever e-commerce sales, if the overall orders go up, think from it from this perspective. Will all these will all these e-platforms benefit? Answer is yes. Now think about e-platforms which are listed on the stock exchange. Think of what will be demanded on these e-commerce platforms. It could be something like electronics, it could be something related to fashion. Now think about stocks which are related to these. Now if the orders really go up, will there be packaging required for all these? Yes. And are there any listed players here? Think about logistics which will be required to deliver the goods from the warehouse to the customers. Are there stocks which are listed in this space as well? Absolutely. So what are you supposed to do? Just pause the video. Let me know in the comment section at least one or two stocks which you feel can get positively impacted because of this. So all in all, if I were to understand how festive season or how this entire festive sales really happened, I think consumer demand is a perfect barometer for that. And if the overall demand goes up, ideally it will have a positive impact on the stock market and also on the economy. Now let's try and understand about the impact of all these sales, e-commerce sales on consumers. See, ultimately, okay, I will select the product, this, that. Ultimately, it's about payment. And for that, I came across this very amazing report by Global Payments Report. It's a latest report 2025. And when I scroll down to page number 52, this is where I came across something very interesting. Okay. Now, this is the 2024 Asia Pacific e-commerce payment methods report. And here you can see how are people paying. Digital payments 81% and cash and cards is 19%. Okay. Now in digital payments, cryptos, I'm not going to really consider it way also. Digital wallets, here you can see China is at 84% and India is second highest at 64% digital wallets. Okay. And then something which I again caught my attention is BNPL, that is buy now pay later. Australia is 15%, New Zealand is 13%, India is at 3%. Okay. Now, when it comes to buy now, pay later or any other no cost or low cost or no cost EMI, I'm sure a lot of eyebrows are raised. So first things first, we'll try and understand a little bit more about that. That is this space really growing or not? Now, if you look at the current market size, 2025 market size for BNPL, it's at $4.03 billion. And it is expected to go to $26.6 billion by 2032 at 30.9% CAGR. When I read this, it blew off my mind. In fact, for those, before we proceed, if you don't know about BNPL or no cost EMI, these are nothing but short-term financing solutions where you get typically like 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months credit. Okay. Why is this rising? I mean, when I read about a 30.9% CAGR, even I was interested to know that why is this happening right here. Typically, I found out reasons like rising e-commerce adoption or typically the Gen Zs showing more shift because 75% users are under 35 age for the BNPL category, right? So I thought I should research a little bit more on which are the product categories on which BNPL is most used and least used also. Typically, if I talk about electronics, be it mobile, laptops, or be it something like fashion, apparel, beauty, furniture, travel, high ticket size basically. In all these cases, we have seen that BNPL is being preferred. Okay. Emerging categories are something like groceries, essentials, but the least common categories are the low value categories, something like, daily cash, small purchase transactions, somewhere between 100 to 200 rupees. Okay. Then we have to understand that who actually comes up with these BNPL categories. So it is typically banks and NBFCs who commonly underwrite the credit. Okay. It could be either directly by them or through partnerships. Now, if I'm talking about marketplaces, be it Amazon, Flipkart, they run pay later products in collaboration with lending partners, something like IDFC First, Axio, small finance banks, and others. And if I'm talking about payment processors, be it something like Pine Labs or fintech platforms like PayU or Zest Money, LazyPay, Simple, whatever, they play their own role in tech, underwriting, or even merchant integration, right? So why I'm talking about BNPL? It's of course not a sponsored video. I thought that because it's showing a huge rise, we should talk about it on our platform. What is the overall trend? Why are people really going for it? But I thought we should first talk about this important point that really is it interest free or are there any hidden charges? So what we need to understand for those who are offering BNPL, what is their revenue source? Correct? Those who are offering BNPL, their primary revenue source is merchant fees and that accounts for 60 to 80% of their revenue. So basically, if I'm offering BNPL, whom am I going to charge? I'm going to charge the merchant, basically the seller. I'm going to collect fees from the seller. You'll be like, why will the seller pay fees? Because if the seller offers BNPL, there are chances that consumers or customers actually buy that product quickly. Okay, so me as a BNPL offerer, I'm not going to charge anything to the customer. I'm going to charge to the merchant. That's 60 to 80% of my fees. When will I charge the consumer? If the consumer doesn't pay on time. So late payment fees, that forms 15 to 25% of the revenue of BNPL providers. Big one. If someone is extending the loan, let's say earlier it was 2 months, now they are wanting a 3 months loan or a 5 months loan, 6 months loan, whatever. In such cases, interest on extended terms is also charged. So in that case also, a BNPL offerer will charge whom? Will charge the customer. One important point, is there any processing fee? And answer is yes. So you as a consumer, you as a customer, you have to check whether there is any processing fee or not. Typically, processing fee is charged. If it is at a lower side, you may take your own call. If the processing fee is high, ideally you should not go for BNPL. Okay. And one last point is that for a BNPL provider, even cross-selling income can be a part of their income. It's less than 5% right now. It's small, but it is growing. So all in all, today I just wanted to discuss about all these big billion sales and what Great Indian Sales, not only from their perspective, but also from an entire e-commerce space, from a perspective of the economy, from the perspective of a consumer, from the perspective of stock market. I hope you found a lot of value in today's video. If you did, please don't forget to smash the like button. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Jai Hind and bye-bye. You might have come across such advertisements on various social media platforms. Please note, all of these are fraudsters promising unbelievable returns through stock tips. I don't provide any calls or advisory services. I provide only educational content through my social media handles and through my website rachnaranade.com and rachnaranade.in.